I don't really think there was, there was a guy who just last week, he was in the papers. We have a comedian called Freddie Starr. Freddie Starr's the guy who went to hamster. I don't know if you remember the story. Freddie Starr eats hamster. That wasn't in the Times. And this fella looked a lot like me, and so he went to a plastic surgeon to get his face changed, and now he looks like Freddie Starr. I just thought that was a really funny story. Where do we go from there?
Well, come back to it. How much of Davy Jones?
Oh, yeah. I don't think there was very much at all. I mean, I honestly, I was trying to create an idea of how to expand the horizons of it. And I took as the alien for Ziggy, as he was supposed to be an alien sometime. I based it very much on the Japanese concept. But at that particular time, in the early 70s, we knew so little about Japan. Japan really hadn't exploited itself and brought its stuff over to the West, so it still seemed like an alien society. But it was a human alien society, so you could make a human connection to Japan far more than you could say to Mars, which would just be on.
So how easy was it to leave the character behind? You killed him off so emphatically.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem. I really didn't, because I really wanted to move on. In '73, we'd incredible. The whole thing lasted only for 18 months. It's just incredible. We did 1 year's worth of tours. We never even played Europe. We played England and the States. I killed my manager. Never played Europe. Never played Australia. And it was over. It was just over. I decided that's enough. I don't want to get imprisoned by them. And because I really wanted to. Towards the last 2 or 3 months of the whole Ziggy tour, I'd already kind of decided what I wanted to do, what I wanted to write. So for me, it was just absolutely necessary to move on.
And what was behind the androgynous images of the 70s?
It just seemed so perfect within the time that really represented what the 70s was all about. There was such a feeling coming out of the 50s and into the 60s. There was a real opening up of attitudes in the 60s. And then the 70s, everything became, it was the pluralistic 70s. There were so many sides to a story in the 70s. Before, in the 50s, it was just black and white. It was one story, yes, and one story, no. But in the 70s, you could look at things in so many different ways. Nothing was right. The idea of absolutes was kind of starting to disappear. It wasn't this is the right way, this is the wrong way. And I just felt that it really summed up the whole of what the 70s were going to be about. It was a guess. It was a good one.
How much of that?
Oh, I think that would definitely. I mean, I was in my opinions and in my interests, I was extremely Catholic, and there was nothing that didn't interest me. I had a burning.
Figure out how to
I
get
still
that
do have a burning.
square.
Just about everything. This is except country
see.
western. But other than that, I really like to understand the society that I'm living in and how it works, how it functions, and what people are thinking. You can't be a writer in any other way. I think you have to sort of know where you are to write.
Is that how you see yourself mostly or primarily as a writer? Firstly?
I think up until the last couple of years I would definitely have said yes, absolutely. But I'm so surprised that I never really enjoyed performance very much. I mean, having the theatrical devices helped me get on stage and do them.
And that was a shyness?
Yeah, it was really. I never really felt like the natural performer. I wasn't an outrageous person at heart. I was actually a very quiet little Capricorn.
Hey, family.
And it seemed that I could get a kickstart
chatting with me over here. Fine.
Working within the functions of characterization. This last 2 or 3 years, I've just thoroughly enjoyed the hell out of just singing the songs that I wrote for all those people myself, and just interpreting them myself. And I've got such a wonderful supportive band that I've had now for 8 years. It's just been great. So now, yeah, I'm a writer and I'm also a performer.
Well, looking at that quiet, shy little boy that you described, how did he handle the fame? I mean, the fame really came into focus with Ziggy Stardust, and continued.
I never ever at any time really enjoyed the fun aspect of it. I mean, at the height of it all, I never used to go out. I hated going out. I wasn't a party guy. I never used to go to parties. I was really a recluse. I'd stay in all the time or creep out the clubs at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I mean, I became a night animal. I just didn't like the fame thing. Getting a table at a restaurant might have been nice if I'd eaten. I never used to eat in those days.
So you actually recorded the song Fame.
Yeah.
Lennon worked on it.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It came out of a conversation that we had. I said, I hate this manager that I've got. What can I do about it? How do I get a new manager? Stop right there. No management. You don't need management. I mean, he was the first artist I'd ever met who told me that I didn't need management, that it was not necessary. And bless him, forever after that, I did get rid of that manager, and I virtually managed myself my entire life. I've had business advisors, but the idea of management has never crossed my path again since 77.
But was that an exciting thing for you to work with John Lennon?
75. It helped. I mean, he was one of the major influences on my musical life. I mean, I just thought he was the very best of what could be done with rock and roll, and also ideas. How he was so. I mean, I felt such kin to him in as much as that he would rifle the avant-garde and look for ideas that were so on the outside, on the periphery of what was the mainstream, and then apply them in a functional manner to something that was considered populist and make it work. He would take the most odd idea and make it work for the masses. And I thought that was just so admirable. I mean, that was like making art work for the people, not sort of having it as an elitist, thing. There was just so much about it. He was tremendous.
Living in Los Angeles in the 70s has often been described as a lost or depressed period, if not dominated by cocaine, and certainly deeply affected by it.
Yeah.
What are your own standout memories of that time without it?
There are no standout memories of Los Angeles.
Well, what's your perspective looking back?
Just again, function. I guess a lot of it had to be my trying to function behind what really was an extremely shy, reclusive kind of personality that I had, and I kind of probably, like most people, get deeply involved in drugs. It was I felt that it probably helped me break out of my inhibitions, but of course it doesn't. It just throws you into a real quagmire of psychic and emotional hell. Really, it just brings out or creates awful traumas for me. But I had no idea.
What would you say? What would you say it cost you in personal terms?
Oh, it cost me a lot of years where I could have spent them in a very different way, and had a healthier and more fulfilling kind of. I mean,
But it's all good.
I think the work that I did during that period was surprisingly really good. I mean.
But what you don't know is what you might have been.
Yeah, the thing is, so many people, especially, it's fashionable to say, well, you wouldn't have been able to write those things if you weren't on drugs and all that, and I just doubt that's really the truth at all, because I think some of the best things that I wrote that period, I'd already cleaned up, and so I think that disproves that point.
I think when you interviewed as much as you've been and quoted as much as you've been, it's perhaps a little unfair to bring back past quotes, particularly from that period, but I was.
Are we ever going to get to the
present? I was
present?
staggered when I read a quote from a Rolling Stones interview that you gave at the time saying, "I believe very strongly in fascism. We need a dictatorial right-wing tyranny." What was that about?
I think that was probably a bit code-driven. It was also part of. I fell into the trap of the black magic, Kabbalism, the whole idea of just the Crowleyism of the times. It was a significant part of that middle point of the 70s, and I really got completely disoriented by all that. It was an awful, dreadful period. I mean, the only escape for me in the end was just to get up and clean myself out, and just finish my association with cocaine, which had become such a problem. I couldn't function in any other way from day to day. I couldn't I wasn't eating. I couldn't eat anything. If you've seen photographs of me in that period, I weighed, I don't know, 95 pounds or something. It was just dreadful. I'm absolutely amazed that I actually survived that period.
You did come through it, obviously, and you continued to produce groundbreaking music through
we're only in the late 70s.
I
think we've got to stop it.
We're getting there. But it's commonly accepted that you lost your artistic thread in the 80s. And I've seen you describe it as your Phil Collins period. What happened there?
Poor old Phil. That's the trouble when you become a symbol for something. And Phil, in this particular case, is somebody who really achieved an unknown kind of popularity with the mainstream at that particular time. So I'm just using you as a symbol.
Partially with partially without. Now look at that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to say that's never been done in the footwear.
Let's Dance absolutely took me by complete surprise. I mean, I had no idea that I would ever achieve that kind of popularity in the mainstream kind of arena. And I just didn't know what to do with it. I suddenly doing tours, the like of which I'd never done before, playing stadiums, not clubs and theatres, you know. It's
heady in its own way.
It was heady, but on the other hand, it was kind of scary. I thought, what do I follow this up with? You know, what do I do? And I wrote 2 albums where I felt I really pandered to an audience, trying to meet the audience's expectations, what I believed they wanted. And I think they were artistically disastrous because of that. Looking at other artists, contemporaries, which I had to do to see if I was alone out there, I see I'm not the only one that made some blunders over a 35-year career. But I think I did okay that I only really made 2 albums that I really think were bad.
and the journey through the 90s to today.
Yeah.
The David Bowie of today is pretty straight in every way. I read recently, content with reality that you're no longer the trailblazer.
I hope that I'm somebody that other artists could look to as maybe someone who's learned how to ride the full curve of having some kind of longevity in their chosen profession. You know, I'm still writing and producing the music that I've always wanted to, and I still have a very loyal audience. I don't think life could be better for me. And I think I'm a good example.
And legacy. How would you like your legacy written?
I'd love people to believe that I really had great haircuts.
No problem there.
Oh yeah, I got the photos of them otherwise.
And they're still hanging on a lot of walls.
They're still hanging on a lot of heads as well.
Seriously.
Well, for good or better or worse, I think maybe the idea of opening up your possibilities. I mean, just speaking strictly in terms of music, I think being able to look to all kinds of music and being able to draw from all those kinds of music, to be able to cross.
Super powerful, and your negative thoughts are not very powerful. You just get off the track in the frequency of emitting negative thoughts, of focusing on negative thoughts about you.
We're searchers.
But
you and me. But you deserve a chance to make a place in the world. See, I'm a searcher who just wants to settle. Wants it bad. Just can't seem to find that place that'll live up to you, my perfection.
You want to tell me what you're doing in this place?
Oh, it's a fine thing to say to a customer.
Customer who has brought a host of problems to my town, which already has enough problems.
You don't know a cock-a-doodle thing about us. This town is not a good place. We're running from something, aren't we? I will always do anything to keep you safe.
People around here, they forget. They forget the past. It's written in blood. I'm warning you. Some
something bad is coming.
Listen to me now. People at places like this try to make you one of them. So they can use you and throw you away. But I won't let them. It'll be blood on Christmas before I let them. That's the story, soup to nuts. Discover Lint Excellence with all your senses. Explore the finest cocoa, roasted, blended, and shaped to perfection, revealing layers of rich flavor and aromas. Lint Excellence, dark chocolate from the Lint Master Chocolatiers.
You see, having gone through the Beatlemania thing, nowadays it's nothing like that. I mean, I can walk down the street and somebody will say, "Oh, hi, John," and they usually say, "How's your immigration?" If it's in New York, right? And they don't hassle me. I might sign one autograph, two autographs, you know? And I don't get hassled. And I went through that period where I actually couldn't go anywhere. And so now it's like, hey, I can go and eat. We go and eat. We go to the movies. We go wherever we want.
John Lennon was walking down the street on the west side of New York last night, 10 and 11 o'clock Eastern Time. He was shot down by an assailant who was dead tonight in a senseless, terrible, terrible moment. The interview that you just saw, the portion of the interview, was first recorded here in New York at the NBC studios in April of 1975. And to this day, the John Lennon Show, as it is called in the Tomorrow series, is still one of the most often requested programs for review purposes. And we're going to run the entire interview tonight, not because it's a terrific interview or it's terribly entertaining or enlightening. It is, after all, 5 years old, but curiously, it turns out that possibly this interview was the last television interview that John Lennon ever did. It contains no historic information, nothing terribly new, but after all, it is a little bit of stuff and substance of a man who was part of a change, a revolution, if you will, in popular music back during the 1960s. And during the 1970s, John Lennon found a new lifestyle for himself, which he will discuss during this interview. A bit later on, we have Lisa Robinson, who did one of the last interviews with John Lennon, which will appear in the New York Times syndication service later on, and Mr. Jack Douglas, who produced John and Yoko Ono's current album, Double Fantasy, who was with John and Yoko shortly before his tragic death here in New York last night. We'll be right back to run the 1975 interview with John Lennon after these announcements, and I hope that you all stay with us. We'll be back in about 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
I guess you need to write out these descriptions and then have it.
Promised, here is John Lennon, and a little bit later on in the program, we'll talk about the possibility of his having to leave the United States, and at that time, his attorney, Mr. Leon Wilds, will join us to make certain that John or I make no mistakes in the legalities. But I welcome you here, and I'm glad that you're here. As I said at the outset, back in 1964, after the cataclysmic arrival of the Beatles here in the United States and the great popularity you had on the Ed Sullivan program and others, there were many people who did not really understand what you were doing. And they thought then that your hair was long and that you looked modish, you were revolutionary. Does it surprise you at all that it took so many of us such a long time to get into your act and to realize what you were doing?
No, it was mainly parents, and they were against rock and roll. Anyway, before the Beatles came along. I mean, people have been trying to stamp out rock and roll since it started.
Why do you think that is? What are they afraid of?
I always thought it was because it came from black music, and the words had a lot of double entendre in the early days. And it was sort of, the white kids, our white, nice wasps are going to go crazy with all this moving their bodies. The music got to your body, and the Beatles just carried it a bit further, made it a little more white, even than Elvis did. Because we were English, and people couldn't hear it. That's why they didn't understand
it.
Well,
that brings up an interesting point. One could never understand the words until one sat down with the record album. I went to a couple of your personal appearances, including one I think in Philadelphia in 1965 in an outdoor location. And there was so much screaming
so much carrying on. And did that bother you at all when you were doing those concerts? That people couldn't hear your music, that all they heard was themselves screaming?
It got a little boring. I mean, it was great when it first happened. When you'd come on, it would just be nothing but wah, you know. But then we just became like lip syncing, miming, and sometimes things would break down and nobody would know. And so it wasn't doing the music any good.
When you guys were in the dressing rooms after these concerts, or when you were in the dressing room after the Ed Sullivan Show, or my heavens, young people were just almost flinging themselves on stage.
Yeah.
Didn't you ever wonder, are these people crazy? Are we that good? Can we really produce this kind of reaction?
We didn't think whether we're that good or not. You've got to think you're good to do what we did, you know. It was like being in the eye of a hurricane. So there was never a time when you thought what's going on? And that was about as deep as it got. What is happening, or what? You know, you'd suddenly wake up in the middle of what concert or happening. How did I get here? You know?
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I remember was playing music in a club, and the next minute this. But we never thought about it too much because it was an ongoing thing. It was happening to us, and it was hard to see. You know, we were just in the middle, being ushered from room to room.
As I recall, there were fan clubs or clubs of followers formed for each of the individuals in the organization.
Well, it was mainly a Beatles club, but you know, they sort of fanned it out a little just to keep the.
And I'm just wondering how unified any group can be. I'm not singling out the group that you belong to, the Beatles, but how unified can any group be when the audience has certain favorites? Maybe they like Paul more than they like John or something like that. And I wondered, I got right to it, didn't I? Yeah. I just wondered if it's awfully difficult to be friends, and do you really care about whether or not you're friends when you are a group such as the Beatles, or whether you're the Rolling Stones or whoever?
We didn't break up because we weren't friends. We just broke up out of sheer boredom, you know? And boredom creates tension.
How can you get bored doing what you did?
Because it was going on. It was not going anywhere. You know, we'd stopped touring, and we just sort of said, "Time to make an album." You know, go in the studio. We the same four of us be looking at each other and playing the same licks.
And those silly haircuts, yeah.
Those silly haircuts that you have now. And we were very good friends, and we'd known each other since we were 15. You know, and we got over all the actual fighting, the real nitty-gritty, dirty, you know, stuff, which had nothing to do with how popular we were. The same popularity, meaning Paul was always more popular than the rest of us, was going down in the dance halls in Liverpool. So it didn't come as any big surprise, you know. I mean, the kids saw him, the girls would go, ooh, you know, right away. So we knew where the score was there. But it was a group, it was the music that was interesting, that was important, not who was, you know, as long as we were, you know, going forward and going somewhere, it didn't matter.
But all of a sudden, there just wasn't any further progress. It was the same old over and over again.
Yeah, it just got like
because
a marriage that doesn't work.
Now,
if you weren't
there
there
are
trying to
some
talk
groups
to me,
that are quite open.
it would not be working. That's true.
They advocate
3 people over here.
social justice. They call for an end to war.
Usa
They
Juice.
wish for a time
Shout out
when
to
there might be a change
Usus
in the
Jusuko.
Your
Yo.
music did not do that. There wasn't a great deal of out-and-out editorialization.
Shout out to
of songs.
Usagusu Audra.
At least I didn't
Raven
feel it. I
Bishop.
don't think there were a lot
Hi, I
of
guess
parents
this is
felt it.
clickbait.
All our
Bye.
messages were subliminal.
Bye, Raven Bishop.
Meaning we
See you
were sending
later.
messages out.
See you
all right,
soon.
but,
Yeah, but what
Bet you're
kinds of
addicted to
just
this click.
reporting on the state we were in, you know, looking back on it.
I don't
And
think this
we made
is.
things like All You Need Is Love, you know, which is
Well, that's pretty
was our
wholesome.
version.
That's
of-
pretty wholesome.
Yeah, that's wholesome. But it was still a change in attitude. We're part of that psychedelic stuff.